Right, this is the this is one of the most interesting things. Obviously, you know, when I was next to the sitting inside, and I was thinking of things to say, and you know when you've got, for instance, a famous person in front of you, and you've had thousands of questions, and you just can't come up with anything. So you think of anything, and I thought, right, I'm going to test it now. I'm going to ask, what happens when we die? Now, we all want to know this, don't we? And do we go to heaven? Do we go to hell? What happens? Right, here we go. Now, without reading anything out of the book, I'm going to try and remember what it said. So whether it differs from the book, I don't know. But I've had time to think about this, and because it's very, very complicated. So I'm going to spend a whole half an hour trying to... Anyway, let's get going. Now, I don't know where to start. It's that complicated. So, and ghosts is in this as well. Anyone wants to know about ghosts? This is here. It's so seriously complicated, I can't even think where to start. Right. I'll start with the kettle problem. When you put a kettle on, there's that same old story. You're waiting by it, and it takes hours to boil. And you're going, oh God, come on, aren't you? Now, if you put the kettle on and run up to the loo, you're really quick, you're running. It's usually finished when you get back. It's a time thing. When you're a kid, time goes really slow and you're bored and all that. When you get to my age, you don't know where the day's gone. So time, although it's the perfect measure, our brain, it's different. If you go on holiday, your 2 weeks goes bang, like that. The 2 weeks waiting for the holiday seem like forever. Right, because our brain can make things longer or shorter. Now, when you're dreaming, dreams are your brain using the part of your brain that deals with sight, using that to process information, to sort information. That's why we have to go to sleep. If it didn't do that, you'd eventually go mad. Some people say, oh, I haven't slept for 3 weeks, you know, but their memory will be suffering, basically. So what I'm getting at is, God, it's that complicated, I've even lost track. What was I saying? Really, really, really bad now. And I'm digging this from deep. Usually it comes quickly. But as with memory, the next day you remember what you're trying to remember. But anyway, when you're asleep, your front or your sight cortex is processing information. Different layers of your memory, which I've got the memory one is coming up. I don't know when. It's not in the next 3, but it's coming up. How your memory works. So yeah. So what happens is, now, a lot of people say at the point where they think they're going to die, they see their life flash before them. Now that's a memory unload past your visual cortex. You see everything. Obviously you don't see everything because the rest of your brain is also processing. So, but you will see, I should incorporate memory in this as well, really, because the very bottom of your memory is instinct. Next level up is pretty much all the very deepest memories like the love of somebody or your mother or somebody who died. It's the last thing. Now they're usually the last things to escape. So you remember those on your very final, when your memory is unloaded and you're about to die, you remember that. Now, on the point of death, the very last nanosecond or whatever seems to you like forever. So the last thing you saw come out of your mind, you're with that forever. So if you did something bad, the Bible bashers call it eternal damnation. If you do anything bad, the bad is usually the last thing to come out. You remember back in your life, you know, you remember most of the bad things and not many of the good things. Well, same thing. So, to cut a long story short, the last point of death, you'll remember the last thing out of your memory. This is not what I think. This is what I was told. What I was told. Okay? I would have never been able to think any of this up. But that last second feels like forever. So you're always there. So people have died on the operating table and come back. They see their body. That's their whole memory of left. And it's usually gone into the walls and the ceiling. Or affected the walls and the ceiling. So yeah, they're looking down on their own body, basically. Now, they might be thinking that, or it might be real, but some people even say what the time was and where the clock was on the wall and all sorts. A lot of people, if you go on YouTube and hear all the stories, say you said 99% of them were lies, 1% of them's got to be right. But, you know, I know how that works, because what happens is, if a long time ago, for instance, people used to hide money because there was no banks, and people had undone things in their mind, so that when they died in an old stone building, the last thing they remembered is, oh my God, I haven't told anyone about where the money is. They need that. And there's a big brainwave. Now, as we know, there's now a band you can put round your head and attach to your computer, and you can move the cursor with your mind. They came out 10, 20 years ago. So if you imagine there is something coming out of your head going into that band. Now if you imagine, oh my God, I'm dying, I haven't done, bang, into the walls. Stonework and pretty much everything else has got very, very fine small particles of iron in. All rocks have too. That's how they can tell what the gravitational field of a planet used to be years ago, by looking at the rock. When the rock goes solid, all those metal particles are all north-south in the direction of the magnetic field. So if they've bent and done other things and pointing in other directions, they know how old the rocks are. So that emission, last emission of brainwaves, gets recorded. Now it's got something to do with where all the planets are as well, depending on how they're recorded. So wherever the planets were, in the next year, the planets are all in the same place. Anyone walking to that room will be able to read those brainwaves, and they see the person, either with their head under their arm, or the legs of somebody walking past, or just the torso of somebody on the floor, because the floor levels have changed. That recording is from that time. So it's a recording. So that's ghosts for you. And obviously we've seen magnetic tape on a tape recorder. That is actually metal, very fine metal in the plastic to record the which get aligned, and that's the music is taken from that. So it's the same thing, you know, it's a recording. And obviously the older the building and the heavier the rocks and everything, on these new buildings we've got made of wood and stuff, very unlikely you're going to read anything off that. It's usually old people, old times, when people weren't ready for their death. Like we retire and sit around for 20 years waiting for it to happen, don't we? So we've got everything organised and we're ready for it. But in those days, you never knew when you were going to be killed walking around the corner. You know. So that's that. So basically, your memory unloading, you remember the last things. If those things are your best memories, which are your dead mother and your dead father or dead child or whatever, or people who've died before you, you usually see those waiting for you. Now, the big white light at the end of the tunnel, the white light is just your retina, all going to full on because of death. So that's the white light. That's the brightest light ever, apparently. And that's because of that. Going down the tunnel, again, tunnel vision. You see your, people have reported this, people see the white light being at the end. It's not a being. It's the middle of your eye getting, and they say that the person is asking you awkward questions and embarrassing questions. Well, no, your conscience is asking those. You know, people have misinterpreted this as a being, bright white light being, a god or something. You know, but it's not. It's actually your own, you know, you can't undo what you know you've done. So if you've killed somebody, that even if you killed somebody in a war situation, that the end of your life doesn't matter. You'll remember that person. You'll remember his face as he died when you speared him or shot him or whatever. You know, that's the last thing. And that is what the religious people call eternal damnation, because you remember that forever, or what you think is forever, but it's not. It's the last nanoseconds of your life. Okay, so that's basically it. In a, you know, I could elaborate like mad. There's lots of other little nuances and things that that affect ghost recordings in a wall. You know, there's lots of other things. That's why some people see the ghost, some don't. You have to be on the right, you know, your mind has to be on the right, thinking about the right things on the right frequency. You know, it's basically, that's it. So any questions, because I respond, I don't really, this talking like this isn't my, you know, if I ever did a lecture on this or something, I'd say to them, right, I'm not telling you anything, you ask me questions. I'll respond to questions. So any questions on death, deathproject-x.org.uk, okay? Yeah, I don't think there's a, like I say, it's simple, but it's very, very complicated. Don't know how you'd understand that, but you'd have to be, in my mind, to know it. I don't know what I've said in here. This is quite a while ago now, so back to basics. What's that? Contact with other planets. We know that. Transport. If I can find death quickly, I'll try and go through some of it. Government. God. Can't remember any of this. Like I say, after my brain scan, abodes. Information system. I think death was at the end. I should put a chapter. Glossary of terms. You'll like that. Previous visits. Yeah. The end of the universe. See? I know about that. I know where the end of the universe is. Dating. That's quite important for our medical. Some quite important things here. Food. Death. Here we go. Death. Let's see if I can pick up on something from here. Right. You hear over and over again people who die on the operating table and are then brought back to life, sometimes telling you of seeing themselves laying on the operating table, a near-death experience, involves seeing your whole life flash before you. I was into this at the time, so cleared all this up sharpish with the probe. In life we do things good and bad, and have people close to us die before us, and hear about people committing suicide, etc. Suicide, by the way, if you commit suicide, you've automatically done a bad thing. So you will go the eternal damnation, if you like, route. And you'll be in some sort of turmoil. Although you've died and there's nothing, your body starts rotting and all electrical activity's failed, that last second seems like forever. So you're actually thinking about killing yourself forever. You already know memory works. A human never really thinks about the good things they have done. This should be a normal way of going about one's life. Now, available brain processing power. Yeah. In sleep, all available brain processing power is used. That's definite. Yeah. Embarrassed by some of the things, but that is your own conscience talking to you, telling you about all the wrong things you've done. And apparently people have felt embarrassed who are on the dying on the operating table. Loved ones waiting for you, that's just your last memories if you didn't do anything bad. Yes, allocating brain power to the job in hand, everything speeds up, so your life flashes before you. Accidents happen in slow motion because the automatics. Yeah, people have had a car crash, see it all happening in slow motion. That's because your brain has speeded up as to try and do something about it. It's like a survival. It comes from a survival instinct. So, yeah. Your conscience, at the point of death, your conscience is leaving your memory or unloading, and the things you are going to remember is taking, yeah, oh no, that's in a different context. But there's quite a lot on that. Didn't realise I'd done all this. Yeah, so if you've done anything bad, and you know you've done bad, that will be the last thing you remember. If you've done good, and you've loved your old mum who died 20 years ago, and you're itching to see her, you will be with her forever. Although you died in a nanosecond, it will seem to your memory or your brain forever, even though it died a second later, completely. There's nothing after that. If you emitted brainwaves, then they will be recorded in the wall, and you might be lucky, or in items, you know. But if you move the items around, it's messed up. That's why old buildings that have been there a long time tend to be the best. So, yeah. That's it for this one. That's only 18 minutes. I thought it was going to be a lot longer. Yeah, and apparently, you know, quite a few, it's usually thinking memories, thinking minds. You know, things like animals and things on automatic don't usually get this. It's only because we've got so elaborate that this is how it happens. Right, thanks a lot. I'll probably think of something else in a minute.